It's a visit with a person of high strangeness. I'm glad to see that most of us survived the storms. East Coast had hurricanes and we had a cyclone, and I'm glad you all came to join me to talk about some things. Now today, I brought in a special friend that, her name is Veronica, German, and we want to talk about some subjects that is kind of affecting a lot of people, and it has to do with child custody. And so we're going to get right to it, and here we go. Veronica, German.
I pay attention to where Saturn is in the chart of my clients because it's usually when things are challenging. And when Saturn was in my house of home, I was having trouble at home. It was just crazy. And it moved on, and I thought, oh, great, it's moved on. Things are going to be better. But then Saturn was sitting in my house of children. And I thought, well, my children are grown, and they're busy, and they're doing things. And as mothers and grandmothers, we are just prayerful. So one of my kids got injured. So that made him drop out of school for a while. He's back in college now to deal with the physical therapy of recovering from an injury. And I thought, all right, now Saturn's picking on my grandchildren. I don't like that. And then last year on this day, on October the 22nd, there was howling, storming, flooding, and airport closures in Texas, which included where my youngest daughter had just moved to, which is Midland, Texas. And someone that she was associated with was smoking cigarettes, and she and I are just deathly allergic to nicotine. And they didn't get it, that it was life-threatening for her, and if you can't breathe, I mean, how many minutes do you have? 3, 5, if you're a real athlete, before you turn blue and it's over. And that's what happened to her. She had a nicotine reaction to a smoker. She couldn't catch her breath, and she died. The problem is not just mourning and grieving, losing my youngest daughter who was new to Midland, Texas, but when I heard from the authorities in Midland, Texas, they spoke to me as if I was Bill Gates and I could be on a flight in a matter of minutes and arrive in a matter of hours into Midland, Texas, which under the best circumstances and support of friends and family, the airports were closed because of floods, because of the storm.
I actually been to Midland, and we have friends. In fact, the show is being seen in that area, so I know how difficult it is on a normal day to get to Midland, Texas.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've been there, and
yeah,
but just absolutely tormenting to not be able to get there, and when someone calls you on the phone and tells you your child is dead, it throws you in a shock. I don't know what I said. I don't know what I did. I don't know what happened because you're horrified. Someone's called you and told you your child is dead.
Yeah.
So I tried to follow through and follow up, and basically I was told, well, if you can't get here, we have to put your child into foster care. Well, that didn't sound horrible to me. Okay, well, I thought that might mean, it's $100 a day until you can get a flight in here, and
right.
You'll reimburse us for taking care of your child, and you'll come get your child, and I'll get there as soon as I can.
No, we talking about your granddaughter now.
Yeah, we're talking about my granddaughter. Yeah. My granddaughter, yes, my youngest daughter's only child is now 12 years old.
Yeah.
And my granddaughter was present when her mother died. When she called 911, she then attempted to give her mother CPR until the EMTs arrived.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So, it's horrifying.
yeah, so let me interrupt you here. How about we play that clip now so everybody can get an idea who it is we're talking about here and can put a face on the people. Is that okay with you?
Yes, please.
All right. Can we do that?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the clip. Yeah, boy. What is that? Can I get that clip, please? Yeah. Child care. Child custody is crazy. Without your circumstances. Somebody put a clip here.
Just the whole idea of your child is dead, there's a storm, you can't get to your child or your grandchild immediately. And then you find out that and then I finally saw a video from another state with a judge explaining to social workers about billable hours, and that if they didn't deny access to the grandparents, by the way, in Texas, grandparents are not automatic parties to the case, only parents.
It's the same thing in Washington State.
Okay.
Grandparents have no rights whatsoever.
That's horrifying. Who knew that? Who would expect
Right.
that? If you haven't been in family court and you haven't observed this, which I had never been, I had no idea that there was going to be a very expensive several $1,000 legal battle for the privilege of being the maternal grandmother to my youngest granddaughter.
Did at any time they suggest you move to Midland?
No.
No. Well, that's a good thing.
No.
Yeah.
Other people asked me, would that help?
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't interested because, again, even if I was in Midland, even when I visited Midland, I am not an automatic party to the case, and I needed $10,000 or more to file from whatever place I was standing in order to become a party to the case. And that was horrifying.
Mm-hmm. So I understand you've been there several times, and then they keep postponing things. What is the time frame of the procedure? I mean, are they going to drag this out forever?
I've been at it for a year.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 49 phone calls and several people in my life phoning attorneys to get an attorney. And when we finally got an attorney, which we have an attorney now, there is constant replying to motions where without conversing with me, they've accused me of neglecting and not talking to, not being in communication with the child, and therefore I don't need my granddaughter. Let somebody else have her. I mean, they treat this like this is a community, a car or a wagon or something. Not like it's my granddaughter who has family, aunts and uncles and cousins and great aunts and all kinds of people that are here in California and other parts of the country that are asking for a year now about this little girl who none of us have had the privilege of speaking to. Who does that? And why would we do that? And why does this country allow it? And why hasn't the Department of Justice put a stop to this? Mm-hmm. But I've read many articles, the Dallas Daily News, the Houston Chronicle, online internet groups. I find out now that this is a common and persistent problem that grandparents go through if they lose their children in various states in America. And this is heart-wrenching and terrifying. Mm-hmm. If you can imagine a judge telling me that I am cruel because I did not, when I arrived in Midland, I did not have a funeral for my granddaughter to bury my daughter, which I would not attend. If you can comprehend what I just said, what you're saying, you are denied contact with the child, but you should pay for a funeral. I said, I will take my daughter back to California, and when I get my granddaughter, we will have services in California.
Yeah.
No, because they had already decided that I should pay for that, but I should not talk to the child. And that's incomprehensible. That's incomprehensible. Where in any of the great books would a culture do this and call themselves compassionate human beings? This is incomprehensible. I can't imagine. I can't imagine any group of people who honor God doing this to anyone. And to find out that this is a common practice, acceptable by law and ordered by judges in America, is horrifying to me.
Yeah, you know, I had put out a call here a couple of months ago. I wanted some fathers and grandparents to come forward to share some of the experiences that they had with the system, because it seems to be a whole country issue here. And everybody was kind of excited there for a minute, but then they all backed out. Why do you suppose that is?
Terrified. There's a reason to be terrified, because it's incomprehensible. You know that the people have fabricated stories about you. Like I said, I've looked at video clips on YouTube of judges saying we can't build a federal government if it retroactively for the care of the child to CPS and to the foster care system. Therefore, we have to deny the grandparents access until we can get our money.
Mm-hmm. And so then at one point you took to, what is it called, GoFundMe. You started a GoFundMe page.
I have a GoFundMe link, mm-hmm. because, and this is what happens, and other people have talked to me about this. When you create the GoFundMe link and people start putting money into it, they expect something to happen like now.
No, yeah, absolutely.
24 to 48 hours or in a week. So if 6 months from now and now a year from now, you're still saying, I'm trying to raise money to continue with the legal battle of these resources, if you've not been in this situation and you can't comprehend that, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I just didn't have $5, 10, 15, 20, $30,000 people tell me they spend to continue in a legal battle for a beautiful, gifted, exciting, intelligent child that belongs to me. I am her maternal grandmother. Mm-hmm. And to be treated by law as if I have no connection to her whatsoever, and that one attorney that I spoke to said they told him they didn't consider me for conservatorship simply because I lived in California.
Yeah, that's the main thing that I remember, because I was just getting ready to talk about the fact there is absolutely no one in Midland because they just moved there. So you are it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, see? And,
yes. Yes. And none of the people, I heard from people, she was in El Paso, and I heard from people in El Paso when I notified people that she had passed. But there was only a handful of people in Midland. She was new to them. They didn't know her history. They didn't know her background. They didn't know anything because she was new to Midland. And they all disappeared. They contacted me and said, oh, my God, we heard Maya died, and we're sorry, and whatever. And then they disappeared. I mean, they disappeared from Facebook. They disappeared from having the same phone numbers. The phone numbers changed. You know, people who said they was interested in her, or they would go by her place of business because they wanted to know her and meet her. Their phone, they said, I'll see you when you come to Midland. I called them and the phone number didn't work anymore. You know, she just hadn't made stable, solid connections because she hadn't been there long enough.
Yeah.
But she thought she was doing the right thing. She went where the job took her, and she was promoted to management, and she went where the job took her. And that was not a blessing in this case.
Yeah, now in the very beginning when we talked about you, I want to double back on that for just a moment, if you let me.
Yes.
We were talking about the planets and the stars and the constellations. We should have said you're an astrologer, and that's why we started off like that, right?
Yes. Because Saturn was in what's called the fifth house, or the house of children. And we talk about this with a lot of people. I've had this conversation many times. Yes, I'm psychic. Yes, you're psychic. Yes, I knew that this crisis could come and could impact my family. That does not mean because you know and you have some sort of premonition or vision about something awful happening, that you also have available to you immediately the resources necessary to bring a solution. And I did not.
Yeah.
I had health problems myself, and co-pays of several $1,000s that I had just paid off so that my credit would be clear, only to find out when I didn't have that money that I needed it in Texas.
Yeah, you know, now don't tell me people expected you to know that. Because they do.
Like I said, because you know you're going to need $50,000 doesn't mean that you will have the $50,000. Knowing that it's going to be a problem doesn't mean that you know what the solution, or that you will bring the solution to you immediately. You need help. It always takes a village. I need help. I need a village.
Do you suppose that sort of clouds their judgment in Texas as to who you are in your legal proceedings?
Well, I speculated that, but I've heard from so many people who do so many things, who are broadcasters, who are photographers, who are camera people, who are teachers. I've heard from so many people in the last year who have professions that they would be traditional, that they could relate to, who are in the same crisis, who have mortgaged their home to try to pay the legal fees to do it. So I don't think I'm that special in that respect. I think this is their conduct.
Yeah, that you may be right there. Yeah, I was trying to build myself a bridge here to something else, but I'm gonna park that somewhere else for a later time. Sometimes we do that, you know. You just kind of go ahead. But as far as the system itself is really, really broken. You know, they saw. Oh my God! Anybody can go to court and start talking about something. In my own family, I lost a granddaughter per se. I mean, under different circumstances.
Fairly recently, yes.
We have no access to the child other than paying the bills, and that is it. And anybody can just show up with anything, and the judges, it's just unbelievable. Now here, I was talking to somebody yesterday that went to court with someone in a child custody situation here. And it's the same, what do you call it, judge? No, administrator, whatever you want to call it. that is there that's been making bad decisions for about 20 years. And we got to thinking, what if we rounded up the children that can tell him how bad their decisions was, because the way they placed them, the way they got abused and all of that, because they don't think like that. So
Well,
what do
like I
we
said,
need?
the Dallas Daily News, the Houston Chronicle, there's so many groups on the internet complaining about this that I realized that it wasn't personal. It was the way it's done.
Yeah.
And we have not brought a solution to it. I have called, written, and faxed every congressman, senator, legislative person in Texas and in California to get some help. I either get a form letter or I get no reply. I've gone to big organizations, national organizations that deal with this and have National Bar Association attorneys. And people are just like horrified that this is a case in Midland, Texas, as opposed to any other big city where there might be more resources. Midland, no.
Now, do we have any suggestions how to change it?
I don't know yet. And I've been at it for a year with stacks of letters and communication and whatever. The trial and error aspect of dealing with it, because when you speak to professionals in California, they perceive it quite differently from the way people do business in Texas.
Absolutely, yeah. So
California was very optimistic that this wasn't going to be a problem, which meant I didn't need to chase an attorney.
Yeah.
And then by the time I realized that I had no choice but to chase an attorney, then the judge in Texas was saying, well, Dad, why didn't you get an attorney sooner? You aren't interested in your granddaughter. Well, who's not been in the court system and knows that it's this difficult to negotiate would think, I need $10,000 to speak to my granddaughter. Who wouldn't believe that? Nobody believed it when I told them. People thought I was hustling them for money. They didn't believe that I needed that kind of money to get an attorney to negotiate my communicating with my granddaughter. People didn't believe it.
Many years ago, it was different than your situation, but in a way, by principle, the same. And what I did is I went to see the ad litem, guardian ad litem.
Yes.
And I went there and I said to her, I'm the grandmother and I need to find out what my rights are. And she said, well, what's the problem? And I said, well, I don't know, but I can tell you what this guardian ad litem is doing. And so I went right down the line, but I told the story backwards. Instead of starting at the beginning, I started at the end and worked my way forward. So when I got done, she said, oh, that's just horrible. How could anybody do that? And I said, well, what do you suppose should happen to this guardian ad litem? And she said, well, he should get fired. And then I can't say on television what I told her, because I was talking about her. You see what I mean?
Yes.
And that's how I got it resolved, because it just kind of blew up in her face.
In my situation, has not had a one-sentence conversation with me.
Right.
When I was calling her, she let me know she was insulted that I was calling her. She had absolutely no obligation to speak to me and that get a lawyer. And she was just as cruel to the lawyer after I paid several $1,000s to get a lawyer to speak to her.
Yeah. So
you know, it's like the old westerns where possession is 9/10 of the law. In this case, them having possession of my granddaughter seems to be 9/10 of the law, and they have no intentions of releasing her or the funding they get for her from the federal government to me in California.
And then there's nobody where you could kind of go to the back door a little bit and send messages to her or anything, because she probably thinks you don't care, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And plenty of friends have tried to do that. All my sorority sister friends who are involved and know how to use the programs that's associated with school districts have done that. And then I was notified I was ordered no contact. So if people are doing that, I'm in contempt of a court order.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
thinking in the law, I know the family, who the family is that wants to adopt my granddaughter. But getting in touch with them is a violation of a court order.
And I take it they all know each other? Yes?
Oh, I'm sure. I would just guess. I don't know that that's true, but they must. I mean, they've been in court. They've been there. They had been there before I did. I had a second court date where the flight, American Airlines flight, was going from here to Phoenix and then to Midland, and it was canceled because of an earthquake on this end. Well, all of this was documented. That I didn't lie to the court. I sent the proof that I got tickets and the flight has been canceled and I can't get there before the court time. And it meant nothing. It meant nothing. They would wait 90 days and give me another date, not tomorrow or next week or this afternoon, 90 days. And then complain because it's taking you this long to get what you need. Well, why is it such a problem?
Now, there is no way you can have a long-term projection because there isn't one. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're still in battle.
Yeah.
And they want to take my granddaughter and give her to a family in Texas. That's what they intend to do. And they had intended to do that in the first 90 days. Let me tell you, these people talked to me and said, well, we understand we're reasonable people. We understand why you did not appear immediately because of weather and whatever. And we understand that the judge didn't give you a court date again for 90 days. We are reasonable people and we will wait. But they didn't wait. Once I got there, I found out that they had already cremated my daughter and they handed her to me in a black box. They didn't wait. They didn't say to me, we're not going to wait. Because I was still in the effort of us, the whole family being together for services for my granddaughter, not some institution deciding let's go burn her up and throw her in a little black box and give it to her mother when she gets here. No, I didn't think that was happening. And the person who told me he would indeed, it was not a problem, they would indeed wait, gave me directions to come to the funeral environment to see them, and then refused to face me. I have not seen this human being yet. When I arrived and said that this man had just given me directions to get here, they said, well, he's not here.
Yeah.
This is cruelty.
I remember that time period because we talked, and it makes a person feel really helpless when your friend is hurting, but what are you going to do,
Yeah, I was helpless. I was spending money that I couldn't afford to spend in a place where at the hours I was arriving, there was no such thing as public transportation. So I now got flights round trip. I have hotel accommodations because I don't know anybody there. I need a rental car because there's no public transportation when I arrive in Midland. And then I can't see or talk to my beautiful and wonderful granddaughter. This is heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, terrifying, horrible, horrific, all the things you can imagine. And yes, I have a therapist, I have a grief counselor, and she says to me whenever we talk about this, I can't imagine with all the horrible things she's heard in her life in grief counseling, a mother and a grandmother being treated this way.
Now, you don't have to answer that if you don't want to, but it just occurred to me, my viewers probably going to, one of the questions they will have is, what happened to the family on the father's side? Are they involved at all?
Well, I heard from my attorney lately that they terminated the father's parental rights.
Oh, well, there you go.
And
that's your answer.
We tried desperately to find him because since he was a party to the case, if he had indeed come to get his daughter as a party to the case and said, I want grandma to take care of her, that would eliminate all of this 12 months of scuffle we've been through.
Okay, now that's your answer.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it occurred to me that, you know, people are so insensitive sometimes. It's just really unbelievable. But you multiply, your case is somewhat extreme in so many ways. But
I'm in a group with 4,000 people who are in a case just as extreme.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Now you multiply that by so many other people. You know, that really needs to be looked at. I would say.
And you would think that the Department of Justice would want to look at it, because I've written everybody. I've written the White House. I've written everybody. And my councilman, my congressman, my senator, you know, I've written everybody. I've contacted people and statesmen in Texas and whatever. And people say, well, call this person and call that person. And you look up and you got a page of people that you called and talked to.
Yeah.
But they all kind of shrug their shoulders and say, oh, it's all going to work out. It's been a year. What does a 12-year-old think when they haven't seen their grandmother in a year? If somebody says to them, your grandmother doesn't care about you, at what point does she believe them?
Believe them. That's the whole thing. See, let me back up for a minute again about the father situations. They put fathers in situations where the only thing that they are able and allowed to do is pay child support. I have a family member like that. He's not allowed to see his daughter or anything. Because he missed, he works out of country, and he missed visiting hours, if you know what I mean.
Yes, of course.
But then the majority of people, they talk about deadbeat dads and deadbeat this and deadbeat grandmas. So since this is all hooked into money, who benefits from these circumstances that you're describing?
The person receiving the check.
The check, yeah. Yeah.
Because everybody that communicates with the child, whether we're talking about social services or the prison system or whatever, everybody's got a master's in social work, a master's in psychology, a master's in criminal justice, a master's in something. Everybody that touches this child is being paid professional wages.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, so it's a...
And these are billable hours.
What a record, huh? Yeah. Yeah, it's...
I had a woman in California who is a PhD, educational doctor, licensed clinical social worker, who was kind enough to spend 2 hours on the phone with me talking to who her colleagues would be in Midland, Texas. And she was horrified at how little cooperation her credentials and her license got her to speaking to people in Texas about this case. And they said, well, is Veronica German your patient? She says, no, but I am her consultant.
Yeah.
I am her consultant. And she told him who she was, and she told him she was licensed. She told him, you know, basically, you can go to the Department of Consumer Affairs. You will find my name and the exact same phone number that I'm calling you from, registered in the appropriate places, and you can call me back. And we spent 2 hours getting a runaround.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrifying. And all I am is somebody's grandmother. And I am also a great-grandmother. I have grown grandchildren. And I'm somebody's grandmother wanting to talk to and pick up my granddaughter. And I found out that was an absolutely foreign idea. I cannot talk to or pick up my granddaughter.
So, you know, in some situations, I had to deal with things too. And I had to talk to a Native American tribe about the fact that I was somebody's grandmother, you know, and the way it was that the grandmother was really in charge of the whole thing, and I'm getting a wind-up sign here. That's what I am, right? Veronica,
yes.
Would you mind coming back?
Because it's almost 6.
Would you mind coming back another time? And we really need to finish this.
Yes.
You would come back? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I got gumbo for the crew. They need to eat, and then we need to go home. This joint is getting ready to close. And
Okay.
and ain't that some dookie?
I'm gonna.
It
Yes,
really
it is
is.
some dookie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something about getting something to eat, and we will talk later.
Love you. Okay.
love
Thank
you too.
you.
Uh-huh.
We see you next week with
All right. God bless you.
yeah, with something else. And thank you, crew. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
This million would like to thank you for all the fun you took us here. Take us down, and it's just because you really care where our journey goes. All it begins is part of our planning will extend. And if we do our part, we'll flourish. We've had from the like to thank you for all the fun. Take us here, and you take us down.